Hey guys, welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm your host, Alex Whiteley, and the biscuiteer joining me today is our Julie Fox. How's it going, Julie?
Yeah, it's going good. Thank you, Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking very radiant, looking very smiley today. How have you been? You been okay?
Yeah, I've been fine. The sun is shining. It's very nice. So out in the garden doing stuff.
I think we're getting to a point now where the small things are kind of, we're appreciating these things, like the sun, the ray of sun coming into our house. Oh, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
You know, joined with us today is Annie House. Thank you for joining us, Annie. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
There you go. I'll switch the screen so I can see you both. Annie, you are from Shropshire Council, is that right?
I am indeed from Shropshire Council, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Before we get into talking about what we're going to talk about today, I've just got a bit of a few mentions. I want to say thank you to Rachel from Dog Aid for last week's show. Fantastic interview. We looked at the lockdown from a completely different perspective because nobody thinks about how a dog that is trained to help others reacts to social distancing. You know, it was a really nice conversation. If you've not listened to that back, I do encourage you to go back and listen to it because it's really interesting. Really interesting. I want to give a shout out as well to the guys that support Shrewsbury. The website that's up there, supportshrewsbury.co.uk. It's something that's been put together to try and help local independent businesses, keep going and get back off their, recover from what's going on. It's we are trying to get involved with what's going on there because I feel like we can all, if we all put our resources into one place, promote everything as a whole, we can all help each other. So we are trying to get involved with that. And also the Parade Shopping Centre, we've had a really good chat with them over the last week or so. They're going to let us carry on using that unit, and we're going to use the biscuit as like a hub to try and help people. We are looking at ways to safely record in our studio. We're going to fill the studio up with lots of sanitizing products, PPE. I am trying to at the moment I'm designing the studio so that it's socially distanced, so lots of wiring being ordered so we can stretch our headphones across the studio, things like that. So we're looking at ways to be able to be helpful to the town. So that's the shout outs there. So yeah, what is your role at Shropshire Council then, Annie?
So hi everybody. So I work for Enable, which is part of Shropshire Council, and we support people going back into work. So it's a supported employment scheme. And within the council, we're the only department who actually deals with employment. Uh-huh. So my role within that is partnership manager. So within Enable, there are several teams, and I actually work in the mental health team. And my role is actually funded partly through the NHS, although I sit within the council because we're working with people with secondary mental health issues. So for people that don't understand what that means, primary is when you go and see your GP. So you'll notice on the signs when you go in, it says primary, if you've ever noticed that. And secondary is when you actually go and see a specialist. So the project that I currently work on is actually a project called Individual Placement Support, or IPS for short, and we take referrals through our secondary mental health specialists to go on to that programme. So it's a really interesting and diverse programme, and we've won a lot of national awards, and we are a centre of excellence in Shropshire Council for that. So we're all really proud of the work we do there.
I mean, normally it sounds like a fascinating role. Lots of aspects to things to look at, but during the current situation, I bet it's been really just kind of wow for you guys at the moment, right?
Yeah. So I think what it's brought home to a lot of people, because the purpose of the IPS program is to focus on work as a mechanism to getting more stability and health back to yourself when you've been diagnosed with a serious mental illness. So IPS is all around actually using work as a method of increasing your mental health. So if we consider the circumstances we find ourselves in now, where we've got so much uncertainty, people are either being furloughed or wondering what they should be doing, I think it really brings home how important work and actually what work means to people.
Yeah.
And that's for everybody. We're not necessarily, when I talk about this, I'm not addressing the issue necessarily of mental health for people who are diagnosed with a mental health condition, but I just mean for the general populace. And as we're all sat here in our situations today, we're all sat there wondering what work will be like. And I think it's a recognition now of how important work is as a structure, and the value of work. So if we think about what work means to us, and I often do this as a bit of I'll use a Julie Fox phrase here, a shout out. But we do a shout out on what work means to you. And if I could sort of throw it back to you and Jules, what does work mean to you, and what benefits do you see of work?
Well, I'll go Jules first. Gives me time to think.
Oh, thanks, Al.
Well, you've got your own business, haven't you?
Yeah, that's true. I suppose what work means to me is, because of what I do, obviously it's variety, but it is being out, and obviously I don't do a lot with other people necessarily. I do twofold, because obviously I work at the gym bar, so I see lots of people, and that's the really social element of it. But with the dog walking, obviously that's like with other dogs, but that's walking out in the countryside. And I'm quite lucky because obviously I can still do that with my own dogs. But the fact of, like, currently now, it's what's missing is actually going out and engaging with other people. And yeah, you can do it this way. I mean, we're all, we've all been doing Zoom catch-up calls and all sorts of things and meetings, but it's not the same as being face-to-face. It's probably the atmosphere, the environment and the atmosphere is missing.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see you, so we are face-to-face. We're talking, I can hear you. So I can see body language and I can see facial movements, but it's the atmosphere that's missing. If you know what I mean, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel a bit like it's being in an environment where all the air's been sucked out and we're sort of vacuum packed. That's what it feels like. And if I could describe social isolation for me, it feels like I'm a vacuum packed sausage. I can still see what's going on, but it feels very different.
Yeah.
For me, it's definitely mental stimulation. That's everything. Yep. Everything. It's the drive to work. It's the challenges you face in work. It's interacting with the people I work with. And I span that across not just my actual job, which I love, but with the podcast stuff as well. Because anybody that knows me, I'm constantly busy. I have to be constantly making things and putting things together. Today, I'm just drawing up plans for a studio. I'm literally drawing the studio, writing down lists, putting things on Amazon to buy. Last night we were organising live podcasts, and before that I'm organising things we're doing. That I have to be busy all the time. I think if I'd have been furloughed and I wasn't able to go out and work, it would have really affected me in a very drastic way, I think, because I like getting out, so I think it's everything to me. Actually work.
So I think it's about, so what you're sort of saying, Julie, you've brought up something about socialization, and that's been a key part of this, which I think we do go to work. If we think about work as a sort of social structure, we go to work to make friends, don't we? We go, that forms a huge part of our week, is not only the time we spend there, but what we get from other people and who we interface with. And whatever people are sat there thinking, whatever they do for a living, part of work is about that socialization and being in a team. And I think that whether that team is one or whether that team is 10 or 100, it's incredibly important to keep your mental well-being going. And I think that's been very apparent from how people are feeling, and I think that's a common feeling, and I want to just put it out there that that's a completely understandable feeling, why people may find this a very alien setup at the moment. And going forward with what you said there, Alex, about your routine, I think what's taken away from all this is your routine, and you've had to make up a new routine, which throws people into a spin. And again, I want people to feel assured that that's completely understandable, and it would be a natural response, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, like, the Team Biscuit will tell you, when we had to stop using the studio and we had to do everything like this, I'm sat in this bedroom right now. For me, that was like, oh my God, because, like, you know, without trying to sound like a hussy, I like going out there and flirting with the world. I like bouncing off a bit of chemistry. I like people come to the studio, I'm like, hey, how's it going? Welcome. You know, like you said, Julie, you know, the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I buzz off that, you know, I feed off that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think coming out of this scenario and being sat in our own environments has really shaken people, and I think it really demonstrates what our program in IPS is. It's about a mechanism of getting people back into work, because it offers so much more, and I want people to look forward to actually that process when we can go back to work and what that means, and to actually really get to think about work in a different way, really, as far as aiding your mental health, because that's really key to what my message is about this, is that we use work as a tool to keep ourselves well.
Yeah.
Annie, do you think you're going to have a different set of challenges with people going back to work, in terms of people might feel anxious now going back and mixing with others again?
Yeah, I think it will. I don't wish to be drawn into anything political on this, but I think that we've got to come up with our own scenarios. So I want people to think about what they feel comfortable with, and this is going to be a long, protracted, drawn-out process.
Yeah,
I don't think there are any quick fixes, and we're looking at a situation of going back, some of us, in the next few weeks. We're not sure what that will look like. But I want to just to say that I think people should take their own sensible steps and do what they think is appropriate for them.
Yes, very appropriate.
Social
because
distancing will be going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, just you have to make your own strategy within this and your own little game plan within the rules of how you're going to do it.
What would you?
I think that's very important.
I mean, okay, so there are a few aspects right here. Number one is, it's been quite surprising, but, you know, actually quite humbling to see people that I consider as mentally strong people that are struggling through this at the moment. Like, people that I work with are like, I can't, this drives me crazy. Like, you know, I'm literally just in the house all the time. We're seeing, you know, mentally strong people struggling with this, and then also the aspect of, without getting too political again, I'm going on instructions we've been told on the TV by Boris, is that if you feel like you can go to work, you should go to work. Okay, that's what we've been told. That's got to be difficult for people, isn't it? That's had that the whole system rocked. You know, all of a sudden they've been told they can go out to work if that's okay. That might be really difficult for people that have had a bit of a wobble, right?
Yeah, indeed. And if we just sort of turn that a little, I don't like the use necessarily mentally strong. I think everybody has flashpoints, sort of touch points. Yeah. And I think this business of being pulled out of an environment and being left in our own homes is challenging to everybody. Yeah. I think everybody can feel unwell at different points. Yeah. And I think if we just, I think everybody could struggle with this. I think it's so I don't want anybody to feel that this is a weakness, or
no, it's not.
It's about it. It really goes back to the principles of growing up, and an expectation of life is to go to work. And this is challenging, isn't it? This is challenging a norm. Yeah. So I think everybody could be feeling weird, freaked out, feeling anxious, feeling angry. There are going to be, and we've all felt that, haven't we? I'm sure we've all gone through that, haven't we, as the weeks have gone on.
Absolutely.
And if you know that now, the sort of party atmosphere has definitely died down.
I think it's probably what you've said there about the critical bit is about people will have moments of not feeling comfortable with it. So, and you both know me, and I'm a really positive person, and I'm keeping myself mega, mega busy.
Yeah.
Because I know from in the past, if I'm not busy, that's when I'll have an issue.
Yeah.
So it seems like I'm running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I purposely am. And I suppose I'm very lucky that I actually have, got quite a lot to do around the home and the garden at the moment. And obviously painting my rocks helps, but I am now at the point of thinking, right, I've had clients ringing me up saying, oh, when are you starting back up again? And I'm like, right, okay, I do want to get back out there, but it's now, what's my process I've got to put in place, and am I going to upset people? But I don't want to be putting myself in too much of a situation. I don't do group dog walks, so that's not an issue, but I might visit several households a day. When people aren't around, but obviously it's a change of PPE for every household, disinfecting my own lead in between. So I'm sort of trying to think of a way of easing myself back in, but keeping those customers that feel okay about it, because some people have to go back to work, don't they?
Indeed they do,
whether they want to or not. And they're or they might be in the situation where they've got a company that says you've got to come back to work, but without, and I suppose that's another set of anxiety, isn't it, is my firm says I've got to go back, but I don't feel comfortable with the safety measures they've put in place. How do individuals stand there? What do we know about that?
I think there will be strategies that companies will put into place. I mean, certainly within the council, we're discussing ways and means of actually going back to work safely. So one strategy, and I'm not in work this week, so apologies for if I'm not absolutely up to speed with what's happening, but we were being asked to do a risk assessment individually to look at our individual circumstances. So not only for ourselves, but our families. And I would imagine that would be a sensible way of doing it. And then speaking with your manager to actually come up with an entry strategy for you to go back to work. Now, that's an ideal scenario. And there might be some people thinking, well, that's not maybe something that's going to happen to me, but that would be to me, again, it's about being sensible.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I mean, from my wife's example, exactly, is that they said, if you want to come to the office, you can come to the office if you feel like you can. In my wife's situation, number one, she's asthmatic, so she's a vulnerability, and she has vulnerabilities, and number two, she's got the little boy, so she's like, I can't. That is looking at an individual circumstance and making the right decision.
It is. And within Enable, we've now created a dedicated phone line for people to actually phone up and speak to. I man the line along with some other colleagues. So as employment specialists, we can sort of talk through just sort of your strategies and an action plan maybe. So it's about having a discussion about your individual circumstances. So anybody can phone that line, Alex. We've decided that it was something that was important to put out through the council, because what we're trying to sort of open it up is, although we work in a specialist team for mental health, we, as we're sat here, we're obviously aware that quite clearly this is now becoming a national issue. So I would, say if anybody is concerned and just wants to talk through, it might be just a sensible conversation around what the situation is, what barriers they're facing, what are their worries, and to sort of talk that through. And maybe having that conversation, and then an advisor maybe finding out some other information and phoning them back. So there are lots of helplines out there, and I want people to be aware that there is a great deal of support. And if people are worried, then they can ring the reassurance line at the council about many things.
Do you have the number to slowly? Do you have the number to slowly read out for people?
Yeah. So it's so if people want to look up Enable, so there's a website. So it's Shropshire Council Enable, and there's lots of information on our site. But the actual employment COVID line is 01743 I'm going to read it out. I'm useless at numbers. 276 900.
Okay, can you read that again, Annie?
It's 01743 276 900.
Yeah.
And it's option 2.
Option 2.
So, that's Monday to Friday.
Free?
Yeah, that's a free service.
For anyone in Shropshire?
Anyone within Shropshire. We're not covering Telford at the moment, Jules, but that's something that we might do in the future. But it's just to have a bit of a discussion, and then maybe come up with a few strategies. So, and
that's employees as well as employers, or
it's mainly for employees. But we're not going to be giving like legal advice. It's not meant for that. But it's just to sort of to touch base for anybody that's furloughed, anybody that's struggling with making a decision. If they're now thinking, I'm going to have to change direction and look at a different employment area, a little bit of a, because that's going to be an issue, isn't it? If we're reading the headlines and
I mean, like, I can just imagine there's people out there. Say they've run a business for the last 15 years. Business has gone under because of what's happened. Now they're going to have to go out into the big bad world, write a CV, go out and do interviews, something they haven't done for over a decade.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Job Centre have put up some. They're actually put together a new site, and I can send you all the links for this if that's helpful to do
please
that.
do. Yeah.
Like I say, there's some great information out there, and there are tips on. Certainly, we can give tips on how to create new CVs, and if we remember going back to, we've worked together on things like that, haven't we? So. There's lots of great advice on how to sell yourself in a different way and to pull together some of those transferable skills and just to talk that through in an informal way. So it's having that process is really helpful. And then some tips on if you have to do a Zoom interview. Because that's a different, like you said, Jules.
Actually, that's a good point. Yeah,
it's different from being face to face in a normal room, isn't it?
Make sure you wear trousers. I'm seeing. It sounds daft, but I've seen a lot of these things there. People just
I know,
don't realise.
I generally wear trousers, but I know wasn't there a thing on Radio 1 about somebody not wearing trousers? So
got up to make a cup of coffee or something, didn't he?
There's different techniques and things that we can share on that. So that phone line is open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
Fantastic.
Okay, cool.
What are some of the sort of common issues that you guys deal with that line? So is there something you hear more than often?
Well, I think we've sort of touched on a few there. People are worried. People are just saying, I'm feeling anxious about my job. They're asking things that sometimes you don't have an answer to, like, what do you think will happen?
Yeah.
And I think we're all, but it's having a little bit of a strategy and an action plan for yourself. And I want to bring it back down to the person every time about how you're feeling that you are coping with it and having your own little game plan. Because I think what looks different for you, Alex, looks different to Jules. And I think that's so important that you actually might write it down and think about some actual things that you want to achieve. Because we're not quite sure where we're going. But I think it's having maybe a short, medium and long-term plan that then you can jiggle about. So, that's a dog.
Oh, sorry, I just.
I think the baby steps that you were talking about earlier is really important. It's weaning yourself back out there. It must be a massive. My routine as far as work hasn't really changed. I still go to work. Okay, so for me it's fine, but for somebody has been sat at home, maybe my wife, for example, has been working from the lounge all week for these weeks. For her to go out, bam, straight into the big bad world, down the M54, or into shopping centres, things like that, it's going to be a massive thing for especially somebody that suffers from serious anxiety problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's bound to heighten everybody's anxieties for a number of months to come. Like I say, this could rumble on for some time, but I think it is baby steps and thinking about what you're comfortable doing and maybe trying some things and just seeing how that is. We don't know how long, like I say, we don't have a crystal ball on this, but I think it is about making sensible provision, looking after yourselves, exercising, doing all the things that people have been telling us about for the last few weeks, but really kind of living that. And actually, I think now that the dust has settled a little bit and we've all got a bit less, there was huge anxieties that are still out there, but I think that, like I say, the party atmosphere has definitely dipped, and people are now facing this grim reality that we are probably going to be in a situation where it's going to be competitive for work. These are the realities of what we're going forward with, and it's just making sure that you're okay with what you're putting yourself forward for, that you're not feeling that it's out of control. And I think that's what you're alluding to, Alex, is that you don't want to put yourself in the firing line where all of a sudden you're suddenly thinking, gosh, I can't cope with this and this is making me unwell.
Yeah.
So I think when we talk about health, we're still generally talking about physical health, and we shouldn't be. Health is health.
Yes.
And I think this has brought this absolutely to the fore, and mental health is now, if it wasn't ever before, it is now slap in the middle of this agenda.
And it's really ironic, isn't it? Because mental health was facing cuts left, right, and centre, just 6 months before this has happened. And are we? I mean, obviously, we can't speak for what the government are going to do, but obviously, then now they need to invest in kind of helping people, right? I mean,
well, as a consequence of COVID, it's sort of brought it to the fore, like I say. So maybe that's we're looking for some positives in COVID.
Yeah.
So I would say that maybe this is a more positive step, that actually now people are, if they go back to work and go, well, actually, I don't feel comfortable with that and it's making me anxious, I think that's very legitimate.
Yeah. And also as well,
if you'd have had that conversation before, you may have felt awkward saying that. So, would you agree?
Absolutely, 100%. Because there are some people that wouldn't dare say they're feeling anxious, or I feel like crying. So some people would not say that normally. Whereas now it's been spoken about. Like you said, it's at the forefront of most people's minds at the moment. That it seems a bit more okay to talk about that. I mean, I was speaking from my circle and the people that I kind of know. I can't talk about the whole nation, but it seems okay at the moment. What advice?
It's everyday language, isn't it? I think people are using that sort of mental health word as everyday language and not as a stigma anymore.
Which I find very rewarding, working in mental health, where people still say, when I say, oh, I work in mental health, they're like, oh, okay, that must, they don't see it as the same as working in cancer care or anything else.
Yeah.
Whereas now, actually, I mean, so for me, I think, and there must be lots of people who are maybe feeling that that's a positive thing as well, that actually let's bring it to the fore, because our brain is our master switch, and when that doesn't work, really and truthfully, everything else has to obey the brain. So I think it's a really and we're seeing now how this affects our body. So no shock there, eh? But it's almost a bit like we have done this separation of mind and body, and I think if COVID has brought anything together,
well, I mean,
mind and body,
I feel like socially we've just adapted, haven't we? We're doing this over Zoom. I've never used Zoom and Skype so much in my life. Like, it's constant. Everybody's doing it as well, and there's a lot more people like doing these things, streaming on Facebook and things like that. There's lots of ways we've adapted. What I was going to ask was, for the people that are on the flip side, that aren't like me and Jules, that are trying to keep busy, for people that have had to, they've had a real negative motivational aspect to this, where they can't motivate themselves because they're not going out, now they have to. What advice would you give to someone to try and motivate themselves?
Well, I think there's different ways you can do that. Again, bring it back to what you feel comfortable with. And sometimes when we're in a dark place, the last thing we can do is be motivated. And I think that's a first of all a recognition. But I think if we can physically get out and about now, that would be wonderful to actually get yourself a bit more out and about and a bit more integrated. Just walking. We talk about physical exercise helping our mental health. There's been so much on the TV, with the Joe Wicks, and everybody's doing, so much exercise. But I think actually just baby steps towards that. But I would think, as well as looking after yourself physically, if there's anything online you want to do, if there's any online training you want to do, there's lots of free courses out there for people who are furloughed. County Training are offering some under the council. There are lots of other training providers out there. I'm not just giving a shout out just to them, but there are lots of other courses that you could do.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering about upskilling while you just sat there, I would say, again, thinking about what you want to do, trying to get a bit of motivation. Doing online courses is a bit of a challenge. I've always found them a bit of a challenge, and when somebody's gone, it's online training, I think everyone's gone, but I think it's an opportunity now, maybe to look at learning some different skills, or just having a look at what else is out there. And there's some free NVQs out there, level 2.
And Duolingo is free as well if you want to learn a language,
There are lots of things out there. So again, that's an opportunity, isn't it, to do a bit of research yourself and think about, well, what can I use this time more productively for? Because like I say, we've gone through waves of this, haven't we?
Yeah.
A bit of like hey, what we're getting used to, oh gosh, what shall I do? There's different waves of maybe anxiety, anger about this. But if we can try and actually turn that around to a bit of a positive again, and think about using the time in a productive way, about how they can learn some IT skills.
Yeah.
We're all having to do this IT stuff, like you've just said.
Yeah.
Spreadsheeting, making a good spreadsheet. That's a good way to spend a day.
Oh,
genuinely.
Spreadsheet. Yeah.
The pièce de resistance.
But actually trying to combine that with what your skill base is, but maybe actually combining some other new skills within that would be a really wonderful, useful, and maybe really boost your self-esteem, which is what we're talking about here. This is about self-esteem.
Yes.
I think the IT skill bit is quite critical, particularly even if it's not about going back to work, but it's just that whole communication with family. So my mum's in her 80s, we're all spread around, and so we've so that we can all have a decent conversation for a relatively good length of time with my mum and she can see us, we've set up Zoom. Obviously the first Zoom meeting, we wasted the free 40 minutes just trying to get her online and trying to, kept ringing her up by the phone and saying, right, go to the bottom of your screen, look at this, and if you're using a laptop and somebody else is using a tablet and somebody else is using a phone, it gives you lots of different views. So in the end, one of my sisters basically typed up an A4 sheet of exactly what to do. And now every week when we do our family Zoom call, Mum's already there waiting for all of us. Yeah. She's got it sussed really quick. Just because, my sister typed out this whole A4 instruction sheet on how to use technology.
I find Zoom so easy to use. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
We've had to upskill ourselves, and again, that's been a bit of an anxiety thing. You're sat there trying to join meetings, like you say, and then all of a sudden. So if you have got some of these, because people are being recruited online, we just sort of bring it back to the employment thing, and so making sure that you actually know what you're doing prior to your interview. So that you don't have a last minute kerfuffle, because that would be terrible, wouldn't it? And your anxiety would go through the ceiling.
Yeah.
So getting, some tips on around that would be useful. So, knowing what the hell they look like, practicing with your friends. What do I look like? Actually, what I physically come over. Do I come over? Well, am I giving you enough eye contact?
Yeah.
Am I appealing to look at? Is there anything else that I'm doing that's distracting? So just tips around that, because
that's a rabbit hole for me to go down. If I'm like, oh my god, I sound terrible. Oh my god, look at me. Oh my god, I look really fat. Oh my god. If I start thinking about things that I just don't stop. Yeah.
little tips like that were really helpful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, we've already seen. I mean, speaking to Rachel last week about a dog aid, they've learned how to, get in touch with their clients, do training meetings over Zoom, and make sure everybody's okay. In fact, this situation has helped them evolve, and it's the same for a lot of people. Like the council, for example, running things like this is perfect. I mean, you get to keep touch base with
and
people.
I think there will be some creative new ways of working. We will be. I mean, why not? We can take some good bits. There are some good bits of this. It adds. I would describe what we do on what we're doing now is it gives a different texture to our work.
Yeah.
I'm very much a people person, being a counsellor, but I would say it gives a different texture to a conversation. And some conversations we will be having face to face at distancing or however that will come back in. But some of our work, and there may be people thinking, well, I can do this from my home now, so maybe I shouldn't be going into the office every day. Yeah. There will be changes to work patterns, I'm sure, that just because of what's happened with COVID, but also it makes sense maybe for our environment.
Yeah.
So, there will be some good elements. And if we think about that, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
and even costs for businesses, because I was talking to one of my cousins at the weekend, and her firm, they are looking to move or change offices coming up in August, but they're now rethinking their strategy because they've actually found that their staff have been significantly more productive working from home. And yes, they've set them all up with the right equipment at home, but one of the things she said is that their new office is not going to have to be as big because, yes, they're going to have a base for people to go into work, but they're now going to be completely flexible on the working from. Was frowned upon a little bit because it's like, are you really working? All right, have you popped out for a walk? Have you gone and done this? But she said that her boss has been really great because they've actually realised, people can be trusted to work from home.
Yeah,
we can save some money. We don't need a massive office. Hit people up. And obviously, all the internet and all that side of it's deemed to be working fine. People haven't had massive issues. So, that sort of stuff's really good. But it's
about drawing out the creativity side of it, isn't it? And I think you're right. I think always working from home was seen as a bit of a DOS. You would be at, you'd be, and let's be honest, we do things well. We do. It is a different environment. It's just we're not. You're at work, but you're in a different environment. So the fact you go and put your dishwasher on, or the fact you fill the washing machine, or you're frying some chips, or feeding the dog or whatever, so what? As long as you're being productive, I think we need to. It's almost like taking off our sort of Dickensian way of work, and thinking about, okay, this is the century we live in. These are the times we live in. Maybe there are some different ways for some people. Again, it depends on what you do.
It's with my wife at the moment. She sat there, and Timmy, my boy, is playing Hello Neighbor on the Xbox, and he's struggling with it. So he brings over the controller. She's got a laptop there. She's got all her screens and all her actions, and she's doing all this stuff. She helps him with the game, and she gives it him back. So she sits there. She's working. She's helping him on the Xbox. And she's still working. She's still, if you're listening to this,
because she's multitasking, Alex, being a woman. That's
exactly.
Let's not go there on that.
I wanted to brush up on something which I don't know if it's going to be your forte or it's going to be your you're a counsellor, but I want to talk a bit about bills and struggling, because there's obviously people can't pay the rent, can't pay the council tax, they can't pay the phone bill, etc. It's going to cause a lot of panic. What advice would you give to someone at the moment that's going through that?
I would say reach out. There is a lot of support out there. CAB are a fantastic resource, always have been, hopefully always will be. But the reassurance line at the council will be able to walk you through anything like that, say with council tax particularly, because obviously that's obviously, a council department. But I would say reach out. If you're unsure, reach out to somewhere like Mind. On NHS have their own helpline as well through MPFT. They've got a helpline as well. So there are lots of different helplines out there, and I can send you some links and some phone lines to that if you want to share those on your website, if that's helpful to do that.
Yeah, we'll find a way to.
There are lots. Please don't sit there and what I don't want people to do, because again, that is not my area of expertise, quite clearly, as you said, but I think it's, again, common sense and just feeling that when you are feeling down, and this is a situation which has caused a lot of people to have, like you say, to have days where they feel that everything is getting out of control. Please don't sit there alone. I think a lot of people have grasped the nettle and got on with it, but there will be people listening and going, oh my God, I don't know what to do about this or that. There is support out there. There are people you can talk to, and there are, they're being given a little bit more time to pay bills. So I think there is a national drive to actually give people the opportunity to maybe take little breaks or to combine. So just reach out and get on the phone and get a plan.
Just be active. Be active. Don't just bury your head in the sand. I hate that term, bury your head in the sand, but you know what I mean. From a different perspective, because obviously you help a lot of people. You guys help a lot of people. But what have you learned about this?
What have I learned? I think it's taught me that maybe I thought I was quite flexible, but actually it's been a bit of a shock. I consider myself to be quite a creative person, and I think I just kind of roll with many situations that I've had to encounter in my own life. But it was a shock. It was a shock to suddenly come out of my office, to not be with my work colleagues. And it's made me reevaluate my relationship with my work. And that's what I'm sort of pitching really today, is what is your relationship with your work? And my relationship with my work gives me so many benefits. And that's why I love working on the program that I do, because work is seen as a recovery model. And that's really what this whole conversation is about. So I've had to really evaluate what I think about my work, my relationship with my job. And I value my job so much. I value my colleagues. I value working in such a great organisation. I feel supported. I have conversations with my work colleagues. And although that's still all going on, working in a different way has challenged me. It really has. It's challenged me and made me think, gosh, I need to upskill my IT. But just not going out. Like I enjoy the routine of getting up, getting dressed and leaving, doing and coming back, because my home life, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking this, your home life blends with your work life.
Yeah, it does.
And I found that very difficult to. My tip on that would be to actually put away your laptop, because I was leaving it out. I left all my stuff out in the dining room. It was everywhere, and I was going, when it came to dinner time, it was still out. And my tip is now actually my work is my work time and my home is my home time.
Yeah. Very important.
I don't know if you feel like that.
Yeah, that's good advice. Very good advice.
The reevaluation of your relationship with work is I definitely relate to that, because before this I was kind of like, oh, I've got to go to work. Oh, I'm going to work. But whereas now I'm kind of like, I am really looking forward to driving to work. Like, it's really weird now. I really appreciate the fact that I have a job to go to. Because I worry about the effect it would have on me, obviously. What would you like to see to come out of all this? Say they just go, I mean, it's not going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen, so I can't really say that. But I mean, like, say they're like, right, out you go. Let's back to normal. What would you like to see happen?
Well, I think I've sort of given you my nugget on. I see the positive of this is our discussion around why we're talking about mental health on a podcast, and I just think that needs to be brought more into the fore. And when we talk about health, it's still the stigma. It's still when our project is about getting people some hours to be reintegrated back into a job when they've been very unwell. So when we go in and speak to employers, often it's a very delicate subject to talk about the disclosure of a mental health illness. And I would like to think that for me, there would be much greater understanding and a much broader platform for people to understand that our mental health is part of health, and we are all subject to the vagaries and fragility of life, and this is what this demonstrates. So for me, that would be my hope and ambition, that it's brought more into. And I know we talk about it a lot, but if somebody's been diagnosed with bipolar or schizophrenia, it's still incredibly difficult to have that conversation at work. For the points we've mentioned, and I would hope that it's I would just hope that we can have those conversations, and not to be quite. It's about that chipping away, and I think we've had a huge sea change. And hopefully that this may contribute towards that change in direction, and that would be my hope.
Fantastic. What about you, Jules? What would you like to see come out of all this? Personally?
Personally, secretly, I quite enjoyed lockdown. Only because of you've had time to reflect and be calm and enjoy nature around you and that sort of stuff, and actually stopping and chatting to neighbours, where normally, if you're out and about doing stuff and you're at work, or even if you're just socialising, everything's always like rush, and people are rushing around and they never have time to stop and chat. And, I've just started talking to people that in the village that normally it's just like, well, off you go, rush, haven't got time. So, I'd like that to carry on. And not for people to sort of go back to the whole rush, haven't got time for this, haven't got time for that. But equally for people to be considerate that, I think the whole social distance thing is going to probably be quite a way of life, quite a long time.
I think it's going to be quite offensive if somebody gets closer than 2 meters to say you're standing in a queue in a shop and someone gets closer than 2 meters, you're going to be like, "Oh, back off, buddy." That wasn't a thing before. It's going to be happening now, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's happening now, isn't it? There's some people still not quite getting that.
Yeah.
But I think, it's probably, again, it's the common sense approach, with your own family and your own friends where, they've been. Yeah. I mean, I'm desperate to want to be able to hug some people, hug my friends and when I see them. And I'm going to make a judgment call on that. Based on, I know what they do, where they are, who they interact with a lot, as to whether that would be safe or not.
Yeah.
And then there'll be other people where it will be actually, no, we can just have a virtual hug, I guess. I don't really know.
An air high five.
Yeah.
I would like to see, with all the stuff with VE Day, all these street parties that were going on. I would love to see the community make a drive together to try and make things better. Support your local. There is a lot about that in Shrewsbury anyway. But there's get out and support your local businesses. Let's do some lots of fetes and I would just love to see everyone come together in a nice way.
Yeah.
But
I think we're quite lucky in Shrewsbury.
Yes, I think so too.
In the surrounding villages in Shropshire, because I think a lot of communities are quite like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that's obviously from me coming from down south, where you see far less of that. So I'd noticed that already. Living up here for the last sort of 6 years or so.
Yeah.
But and you're always, I suppose, it's recognising there are always going to be pockets of people that aren't like that, no matter where you are. Of
course, yeah.
And you'd hope that they would be, but you can already start to get inklings of, no, they're slipping back to the norm. Obviously, that 8-week habitual plan hasn't quite formed in their mind, and 8 weeks isn't perhaps long enough for them, maybe longer. Because obviously, if you do something for long enough, it becomes habit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but I'd be interested.
I mean, I would like to see the change of the terminology. I don't like social distancing as a term.
Oh, no. Yeah.
What they mean is you've got to physical distance.
Yeah.
Because social distancing is not helpful. We're trying to stay together as a society. So isn't that rather a stupid term? And it's divisive because actually, no, we wish to stay, physically distant, but actually, no, the social media is the social bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've actually told the government, and whether they haven't heard of that, but it's, it's a terminology, and I don't find that very helpful. And when we talk in terms of being together and health, and I'm talking physical and mental, I think that actually social distancing isn't helpful. It's it's physical distancing. It's about germs. It's not about cutting yourself off.
We should do a socially distanced Shrewsbury Biscuit and just be like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah, so to me that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So maybe we should chuck that phrase out and call it, physical distancing and not social.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting to see if they do that. Actually, if they start to change terminology as well. Obviously, they've already changed some bit of terminology, haven't they? On the stay home, stay alert, etc. But I wonder if they start to move along and change it. It'd be interesting to see where that goes.
Maybe. But I generally talk to everybody as I go about, and Jules, you know me and know that to be true.
Yeah.
But what I found is a slight change is that I'll talk to people, but they're quite reticent because they're fearful, and I'm hoping that the fear factor does go away somewhat, because that's been a little bit of a negative, in just out and about people. Although I completely understand you might wave in your own community. When you've been shopping, people are very reticent to make even eye contact. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, especially on the supermarkets. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Whereas before I might have stood and chatted over the tomatoes. It's all become a bit like
it's in and out, isn't it? And trying to work out which way's the arrow going up the aisle. That person's coming down the aisle the wrong way. Yeah.
And
why can't they see that great big arrow on the floor?
It adds pressure to when you're looking at something. When you stood there outside, there's somebody coming towards you. You're like, I'm spending far too long choosing which type of sausages I want to buy.
I should know what I'm buying. Yeah.
Annie, you've been fantastic. Can we tell everybody the details again of the website and the number that needs to get in touch with?
So it's our employment line is run through our department, which is Enable in Shropshire Council. The telephone number is 01743 276 900, and that's option 2. So if you go onto that, if you go onto the website, if you can't find the number, just go to Enable, and we are www.enable. I don't know if anybody says that www anymore, do they? Enabledservices.co.uk. That's our website. So you'll see that we offer different programs, and there are other things that we could maybe refer you on from that. So it's a triage line, like I say, giving you a bit of an action plan, but talk through some issues if you want to. If you feel that you just need that little bit of extra another pair of ears and eyes on what you're thinking, just useful to have. And if we can't help you with your inquiry, then we can act as, like I say, a triage to help you with some other services maybe as well.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Jules, have you got anything to add?
No, not at all. Just looking forward to the day when I can actually see you guys face to face.
Yes.
I know.
But patiently wait. I will patiently wait.
Well, like I said,
it's been lovely to meet you both. Thank you very much for having me on. And I think there's so much to talk about with COVID, and I think it's a really interesting time, and how we're all developing and figuring our way through this maze, really. So
it's hard.
Good luck to everybody listening.
It's hard to not talk about it, isn't it? Because it has affected so many different parts of our lives, But yeah, absolutely.
All consuming.
Yep.
Guys, thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you want to drop us a line, if you want to speak to us about anything that's related in the show or anything else, drop us an email. Our email is shrewsburybiscuitpodcast@gmail.com. You can take a look at our website, which features all of our audio. You can listen to it directly off the website. No need to go to that pesky podbean.com. Go to our website, which is www.theshrewsburybiscuitpodcast.co.uk, and you'll find everything you need there. This has been fantastic. Thank you very much, Annie, for joining us. Thank you, Julie.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Make sure you catch us next week, guys. Peace out.